Hey, thanks for joining. Welcome to week 1 of module 2. This week we're going to look at waste supply. So, questions around the raw material that you will need to produce a RRR product. To get us started, let me go back to the overview of waste resource options that you were already introduced to in module 1. Now, on the right side, you have the RRR product options that you will eventually envisage to sale, right? On the left side, you have the raw material that you need to get there. So the human excreta, organic residue, animal manure, and used water from households or industry. Now, remember, this is the most important resource to actually get to a RRR product. So you want to make sure it is available in the desired quantity and quality. So if you think about it, waste is simply unutilized raw material that is discarded by someone because it has no value to them. If we think this through, it's a very individual thing to see something as waste. Since you're interested in becoming a RRR entrepreneur, you probably see this slightly different already, as you know that technically waste is made up of different materials and chemical compounds which can potentially be utilized in a different way, like, nutrients, water, and other valuable materials. Now, while society in general have understood that paper, glass, metal, and plastics are valuable materials that should be recovered and reused, people are hardly sensitized to the value of nutrients, water, and other valuable materials, with a few exceptions. Singapore, for example, is a country with very little access to fresh water. This is why they recycle the bulk of the wastewater for non-potable industrial use and cooling. This is equivalent to about 40% of Singapore's daily overall water demand. Building on that nice example, just be aware that what people consider as waste depends very much on an individual person and their needs, the location the material is at, the potential for future use, the timing of use, and many other factors. Now, these factors is not something that you have to analyze comprehensively right away, but you definitely have to keep these in mind when you get to analyze your customers in Module 3. But let's first look at the challenge, which is basically finding the value or the added value that you can derive from waste in order to convert it into a business. To do so, what you should look at is actually your waste supply in your local area. And you might say, no problem, we have plenty of waste. Our streets look like this, and our rivers look like this. Well, I can see the potential, but the big question is if this waste can be translated into a financially viable business. So, if you can process this waste at a cost and then sell the recovered resource at a price that allows you to break even after a few years, or even make a profit. Sounds complex? Agreed, but let me give you an example. Let's look at A2Z Infrastructure Limited. Now, this is a RRR business from India, which has formed a public-private partnership with the municipality to produce nutrient-rich organic fertilizers from municipal solid waste. Now, A2Z charges the municipality, which, by the way, is the actor who has the mandate to collect waste from households in this case. So they charge them $7.4 per ton of collected waste. Sounds good, but you need to understand that this is just sufficient to exactly cover the costs of waste collection and transportation. Now, any surplus income from the sale of fertilizers is what allows the company to make profits. So let's digest this case. At the end of the day, managing your waste supply well will have an impact on your bottom line, either resulting in a profit, as in the case of A to Z from India, or in a loss. Now, this could be because costs of sourcing your waste are too high, or you simply don't sell enough product because you're missing the raw materials. This is why before venturing into your business, you need to answer a few essential questions that we're now going to look at. What is the most reliable and cheapest waste stream for producing your R product? Now, the primary waste source in your area is actually not always the one to seek, as it does not have to be the most reliable, safest, high quality, or cheapest to access. So, which waste stream in your local area will provide the right amount, at the right quality, at the right cost, and at the right time? The most common waste streams are municipal solid waste, market wastes, wastewater, fecal sludge, agro-industrial waste, and animal waste. Municipal solid waste. This is your regular household waste, which usually consists of a mix of organic waste as well as plastic, metals, and paper. Now, market waste is primarily organic waste, such as leaves, skins, and unsold food discarded at or near food markets. Wastewater now is a combination of water and waste from, for example, the kitchen, bathroom, or toilet, discharged by households and institutions as well as industries. And wastewater is often mixed with stormwater, and it is typically transported through a sewage system. When we move on to fecal sludge, we're looking at human excreta that is contained oftentimes in pits and vaults. The household is not connected to a sewer system, right? Be aware, pit latrines and similar solutions are the predominant toilet systems worldwide. Agro-industrial waste are agricultural and industrial residues. Agricultural residues can be further divided into field residues and process residues. Field residues are residues that are left in the field after the process of crop harvesting. These field residues consist of leaves, stalks, stems. Now, whereas the process residues are present after the crop is processed at the farm, comprising roots and bagasse. Industrial residues, on the other hand, occur at food processing factories and include potato skins, fruit seeds, coconut oil cake, etc. Finally, we have animal waste, which is the excreta of animals generated in animal farms. Now, what is super important is that when naming your primary waste stream, you're as specific as possible. Just naming wastewater as your waste source is too general. Is it wastewater from households or from institutions like schools or industries? You may even already have an idea which exact area or institution you will source your wastewater from. So make that as specific as possible to get clarity on what your primary waste stream is. Good, let's move on. Quality. What are the key characteristics of the waste that you need for your R business? The quality of waste streams differs depending on where you get it from and when you get it. Fecal sludge from households, for example, has a different quality than that from public toilets. So ideally, you want to find a waste source that offers good quality. What does that mean? For example, high percentage of organic materials, or clean waste that is already separated at source. Waste with limited contaminations, think heavy metals, pathogens, all the bad stuff. Let's start with a couple of pie charts. Now, these charts show the composition of municipal solid waste in high and low income countries. While organic waste makes up only 1/3 of household waste in high income countries, you can see that it makes up more than 50% in low income countries. This is due to different shopping and eating habits, and it's clear that you cannot generalize this to each country context, but it's worth giving it a good look, as such charts may give you a first idea on the organic share in the waste in your area. What could it be? But what are other quality criteria that you should look at? That's something that depends on your business model and what are ideal parameters for the technology or the processes that you will be using. Moisture content in waste, for example, is something that can be beneficial if you want to produce biogas. But if you move into composting, it's something you need to reduce. For producing nutrient-rich fertilizer for tea plantations, for example, the input waste ideally already contains high levels of those macro and micronutrients that the tea plant requires. And here you see, in some cases, it might not be easy for you to determine the exact parameters that are beneficial to your startup at the outset. So what we suggest is that you actually, in those cases, start prototyping and producing your first products right away. Start applying them to then gradually improve the products, and in that process, get clarity on what defines key quality criteria in the waste streams that you need. Another key question is, where is your waste currently located? Let's see. If your waste source is animal manure, you will most likely find this in rural areas where most farmland is. So if you want to produce biogas for urban households from this manure, well, you have to factor in higher transportation costs. The same applies if you have to collect your waste from individual household. This collection will have a significant impact on your transportation costs. How do we deal with that? Let's take a look at an example. Navacom is a Kenyan cooperative. They produce compost from municipal solid waste. Now, Navacom has been able to reduce its transportation costs because it has outsourced waste collection and separation to the communities that are members of the cooperative. The communities in return get access to machinery and equipment for processing this waste at a lower cost. So that is one way of going about it. Another strategy would be to source your waste from a few distinct sources, like markets, institutions, agro-industry, sawmills, and slaughterhouses, which also allows you to minimize your transportation costs. But at the end of the day, think about where's the waste and how do you get it where you need it at a low cost. To mount a solid RRR production, you need to know how much waste is being generated and how regular this supply is. So you need to know the quantity of waste being produced per year and how this quantity or the amount is distributed over the months. Certain waste streams differ between seasons, so agro waste, like field residues, this is something that might only be available during harvesting season, which is not year-round in most regions. Further, consider if your waste stream is likely to stay constant, decline, or maybe even grow over the next years and decades. How can you find this out? Well, if you want to get an understanding of how much municipal solid waste is collected, and from where, go and ask waste management departments in your area. They should actually also know how much they cannot collect with their current capacities. For assessing the quantity of wastewater being generated in your target region, you need to know the percentage of sewage coverage in the region. So what's the number of households or institutions with a sewage connection. And things like the location and size of the sewer networks and the wastewater treatment facilities. You should be able to get this data from the municipality. By the way, one thing that's important is wastewater is the only source of additional water that is increasing with population growth. That also makes prediction a bit easier. Finding data on fecal sludge, that is something a bit more tricky. What are the types of toilet systems used by different households and institutions? What's the emptying frequency? What are transportation services like? This you don't easily find in statistics, but you can look into census data on household characteristics for some aspects. Interview sanitation experts. Talk with desludging operators. And, look what the data is about fecal sludge treatment in different plants in the area and look at where dumping places are to collect some initial data. This is just some first ideas. To get an idea on the quantity of waste, what's important is that you correlate information that you can generate on your desk and through discussions with actual insights that you get in the field. So good points always to go out there and look yourself.
Let's look at who owns the waste and how much it costs. This might seem strange to you, particularly because you see that wastewater is currently being discharged into rivers and no one seems to care about the resulting pollution. But in some cases, there are laws and regulations regarding municipal wastewater, for example. In this case, it is often the municipality that regulates and owns the wastewater. In the worst case, it is illegal to use this wastewater for any other purpose or by a private business like you. Or a waste stream might already be contractually bound to a competitor.
Same applies if you want to source industrial wastewater. Here it's quite likely that the factory who produces the wastewater owns the waste stream. That doesn't mean that you cannot use it. But if there's high demand for water, or if there's many R businesses around, it means that you may have to buy the waste stream off of the producer. And depending on a number of external factors, the selling price for your raw material will vary. So let's take a look at an interesting case where a company found an innovative solution to this challenge. Husk Power Systems Inc., so HPS, is an Indian business that sells electricity services to rural households. The electricity is generated through a gasifier system fed by rice husks. These are the outermost layer of the paddy grain that is separated from the rice grains during the milling process. The rice husk is being produced from local rice farmers at a cost of approximately $2 per kilogram. Now, at one point, HPS faced significant challenges in producing and sourcing rice husk for the gasifier at a suitable price. Suppliers at one point, so the rice mill operators and farmers, they even started demanding higher prices. So what did HPS do? They countered this by establishing their own rice mill, where they offered milling services at no cost in return for the rice husk. Now, this, in return, forced the suppliers to enter longer-term contracts at fixed prices.
Another key question is whether the waste stream is accepted by your community. Most importantly, your customer has to be ready to buy a product that is made from waste. In some cultures, the acceptance of organic fertilizer or even briquettes is very low if they come from human excreta, so fecal sludge or wastewater. In this case, it will take considerable awareness raising and promotional efforts to be able to sell these products.
Besides your customers, you will also want to make sure that the community neighboring your processing or production plant does not reject the idea of you converting large quantities of waste into product right in front of their doorstep. Let's take a look at one last example. Terra Firma is a municipal solid waste processing company in India. Now, they have to transport waste through community neighborhoods. And this occasionally led to community protests really rising up and affecting their operations. So they had to actually engage in local community support programs to solve this challenge with their host community.
The questions and examples I've given you should enable you to assess your own waste supply now. You may download and see the worksheet below to record your findings. You will most likely not find all of your answers by searching the internet. So this is the moment now where you should leave your office and go outside to find answers. Talk to the municipality, to sector experts, your professor, to farmers, or any other person producing the waste that you want to get a hold of. You might even occasionally have to look into a waste bin, visit a treatment plant or dumping site. If this is not for you, I advise you do not start a RRR business, but let's hope it is. After you've filled the worksheet, I look forward to seeing you in week 2.